Got a visitor. I think it's building a nest. Building a nest inside my hoist. So I'm going to come in above this line just a little bit, and it gives me some room to play, wiggle room. Okay, I'll get this trimmed down some. I've given myself quite a bit of extra, and I'm just trying to get this panel to lay in flat in every spot that it needs to. So there's going to be a little bit of working and some manipulation. Like this edge needs to come in. When I do that, then everything else kind of moves around on me. That's about where I want that. And then I need to bring this edge back so it meets in, and these will line up once it falls into place, and it's not falling into place because the corner is still high. So I'm going to kind of start working down this corner a little bit using a flap disc. Just kind of work this corner down until I can get that to fit in here, and just carefully go all the way around on each spot. And I'm going to leave this piece last so it gives me something to I can lay the panel up there, and then when I finally get the rest of this to fit, I can go up underneath, mark that, cut that out, and trim it down. So I'm gonna get to trimming this fender, or this corner. Right now I've got this really close in the back. I'm not worried about that side of it yet. I'm working about one area at a time. Pull all this really back into it. Get this all lined up. I'm going to come in underneath it, and I'm going to score it, and then get really, really close to that new score line. Okay. Right here along the bottom, you can see there's a score line, and this is when this thing is completely mashed in. That's where everything lines up. So that's where I'm gonna come down really close to that and use a flat disc to get in to fine tune that. I think this thing is fighting me more than it has any right to. This freaking thing, man. It's not holding. Okay, I'm fighting this floor pan more than I thought that I ever would on something so simple. Got a little extra in the corner, and I'll end up taking this out. I'm not worried about that just yet. This right here, it all fits and lines up. I'm not worried about that right now either. What I've got is this little tiny gap right here, which I knew, I had a really good feeling I was going to have that because the original piece didn't have that. And when I flip the cab back up is when I'll fix that. So I'm not worried about it yet. I'm going to get underneath here, and I'm going to score. I know it's about right here. I've got about an inch overlap, and I'm going to go underneath it and score it, figure out where I need to cut that floor pan down so I can get it to fit in nice and flush. If you remember from the last video, there was when I was doing the kick panel, there was a portion in here that I ended up having to cut away, and it actually had a 90-degree bend on it. And that piece, it had a little flange that came down, was part of the floor pan, and it spot welded into the kick panel underneath the floor pan. Well, I'm going to end up building a new piece, and I'm going to have this little triangle cut out here. So in order for this to fit properly and have all the right dimensions, I'm going to recreate that little hole that I made. Get it close and then grind it in. Go. And then what I'll end up doing is this will fit in right here, and it's going to leave this triangle. I'm going to leave this triangle gap right here. I'll show you in the truck real quick. So this little gap right here is not a big deal. I'm just cutting back this corner so it'll end up matching what I've got here in what's left of the floor pan. And right here, this is where I had to cut out a piece because it was all rusted in order for me to get to this kick panel. So what I'll do is this piece will have 90-degree bend on it, and it's a little flange that goes down. It's flush right here, but on the edge it curves down at a 90, and then it spot welds to this inside of here. So all these edges are cleaned up. Then I'm going to start tacking it. I'm going to tacked in a couple spots, and then I can move it, adjust it, and get it all fit. But otherwise, I've got the gap that I need all the way around, and it's about as close as I'm going to be able to get it. It's like any other sheet metal on this. I just want to tack it in place. I'm not going to run a full bead across it. Right now what I'm doing is, I know that these parts are lined up. This is where I want this stuff to be. So I'm going to start by getting that in place first, and move everything else in around it. I've got just a little gap over here so I can put my seam sealer in. Got my gap that goes all the way around. And I've got everything that I need to be. I can move it and adjust it once I get this spot in. tacked in, because I'm doing this by myself, I have a jack underneath it so I can lift up the corners and get them where I need to be. All right, there's not a whole lot of video up to this point of actually what I'm doing because I'm struggling with it. I really don't know what I'm doing. Never once claimed to know what I was doing. Got this nasty gap right here, and I don't know how I had that gap. I trimmed it up on the corner to try to get this up, and I couldn't get it to move at all, so I'm trying to fill in this gap. And I don't know if that's just the absolute wrong way to do it. It's just what I've got right now. I could not get that up any higher. It's not so bad. I can hit it right here, and I'm just bringing it back. But it's proven to be rather difficult. And then this is just stitching. It looks bad because it's tack, and then tack, and a tack, a tack. You know, it's just all over the place. And I got a couple lights falling. I got a couple stitches. I'll stitch right here. So that's what I've got going on. I'm just gonna keep drilling away at it. Okay, got all of it welded in all the way around, except for that triangle. And like I said, that triangle attaches to the kick panel underneath the floor plate at a 90-degree angle. So I need to cut out a piece for that, weld that in. The spot welds are in. Welded all the way around. Just a bunch of little tacks all the way around. But it's on. It's solid now. But the cab mount is up against the floor pan right here. Got nice and flush, and I'm using this triangle hole that I haven't made the part for yet to keep this flat, keep it nice and tight. So I'm going to tack a couple spots in here real quick, and I've cleaned up underneath the paint just to take this E-coat off. So I'm going to tack that up real quick so whenever I go to move this thing, it's not moving around on me. And when I get the whole cab flipped up again. Okay. Those little tacks right there are just enough just to keep it from pulling off, and I still have to get it tight down here, so I do a little bit of fitting, but I'm not worried too much about that. Grinding and stuff, I'll clean that up. I'm not worried too much about that. Been doing some grinding in here. So this looks bad. It's kind of, I can feel it. It's relatively smooth. I'm going to get it close, and then I'm going to use some filler on it, just because it'll never be seen. It'll bother me if I know it's under there. So get that close, and I'll throw some filler on it. Throwing some body filler on this. Sanded it down. It's sitting at 220. Nice feathered edge. I think that if I were to shoot over that, I don't think you'd be able to see where it was. And it's for the interior, and it's going to be under Dynamat or some kind of sound canceling material, and it's going to be under carpet, so you're not going to see any of it anyway, but just the same, it's good practice. All along here, this whole seam now, you can't feel it, so it's seamless. And right up in here, I haven't finished yet. It feels good. It feels pretty low. You can definitely feel it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but It's not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. I'm going to fill in over this too. Just kind of working it just to see if this would even work. I've still got some smoothing out and some cleaning up to do in this, but I want to see that the premise was going to be sound, and I've never done any of this before, so I mean, I'm learning as I go. So right here is real. It looks bad, but it actually it's really smooth because all the little low spots are filled in by the body filler. So it looks bad, but it feels good. And I'm going to go back over this with the surfacing putty just to practice, learn what I need to learn to continue on. This piece is tacked in. It's so that's a little triangle, the triangle that I've talked about so much, and it's just tacked in right now, and it's not even held up against the kick plate, it's just held up against this. But I use that to hold the I use the hole here to get the clamp through, so I could hold that. I could pinch the body mount against the floor pan. But the floor pan's in now. I mean, this is it. It's solid. It's part of the cab again. Cleaned up all in there, all this seam sealer, and I've got new seam sealer to put in all of this, so that'll be getting to that eventually. Next thing I have to do, as you can see, I've taken out the steering column, and I still have the whole driver's side floor pan to do. And to be completely honest, this whole floor pan thing, I mean, it looks easy. It's been a freaking nightmare. I mean, it's been probably the most difficult thing that I've done up to this point in terms of, getting everything fit and adjusted and lined up just right, and making sure that it's at the right angle and the gaps and everything that I've had to put into it. It's been pretty tricky, but I got it in. It's in, and like I said, with everything else that's going in on top of it, it's going to be seamless. You won't ever know that it was ever done. Over here working on the driver's side. All in all, I was happy with the way the passenger side turned out, but wasn't happy with the video itself. So I'm kind of touching base on what I did. So I got all these spot welds. This whole panel is fitted. It'll actually, whenever you push down, got my decent gap there, and I'll be able to pull that up and weld it in. It'll be nice and pretty, but don't worry about it right now. So the first thing I did is I tack in this corner. This is where I know for a fact that it needs to go. And then I'm working slowly across. And I'm in this corner right here, and I haven't started working on this yet. And what I can do is I can pull the metal out or push the metal in or do whatever I have to do to get my fitment correct. Underneath, as I'm doing this by myself, got the floor jack and a can of paint, because that's all I have, to help give me some upward pressure. And that's how I'm doing this by myself. But it seems to be working. I got a really tight fit right in here. I'm going to mess with this corner real quick, see what I've got going. Okay, got it in, it's tacked. Had a little gap right there. Little gap in the corner right there. Little gap up there, but for the most part it's what I want. I want those little gaps so I can fill it in with weld. And it's tacked in now. It's solid. And checking the fitment of where the cab mount is going to be good and tight. So I'll be able to get those welds all in there. So a little bit of adjustment down there in the bottom corner, but for the most part, it's going to work out real well. Okay, with both of the floor pans in, I still have the mounts on the outside have to be tacked in on both sides, and they have to be completely welded, and I've tacked them in. There's some holes right there, that's from the switch, brake light switch, or excuse me, the high beam switch. And as you can see, I'm starting to use a stripper disc, cleaning out all the paint, and then I'm working on, I got some filler in there, and I haven't even messed with this side yet with the filler, but I'll get to that eventually.